Dark Ocean by Patrick Carpenter.
Chapter 5. Addie awoke in a wild, lucid dream. In the phantasmal sight of it, she was lying on her back between two great skyscrapers, captivated by their glistening chrome amidst a blustery rainstorm. They seemed to sway above her like massive trees in a concrete forest. She took a deep breath of the crisp, purifying mist of rain, ignoring for a moment the polluted essence that was Calivia. If only the real world felt like this, but reality knew better. The other side of her lucid state kept waking and promising her that she was indeed still here, tethered to this hopeless land. Wait a second. She heard a faint clanking sound. As she opened her eyes, Addie tried to lift her hand to her face and realized abruptly that she was handcuffed to the bed. Panicking, her eyes widened and darted around the room. A hospital? It must be, she decided upon examining the monitors, beds dressed in white linens, and various medical accoutrements, organized near a bay sink. On the wall to her left were two large windows that took up the majority of the wall. Alex? Eventually, her gaze fell on the bed next to hers, where Alex lay sleeping, his arms bandaged and wrapped profusely. She noted that his hands were also cuffed to the metal railings on either side of his bed. Though she tried to resist thoughts of the diabolical, her mind was flooded with them anyway. How could she be sure that Zach Bryan was a good guy? Prism. Come on. She'd heard of them before. Supposedly they were a super-elite organization within the Saurian military, highly trained and deadly proficient. Prism was also quite secretive, according to rumors, so she didn't know much more about them or what they did. What could they want with Alex? This guy was probably just some serial killer. Hell, maybe he was even the terrorist who planted the bomb at the stadium. Addie was about to call to Alex again, when she heard voices just outside the open door of the room. She closed her eyes and lay still, pretending to be asleep as two men entered the room. "No worries," the man said. "You never answered me before. How can you be so sure that he is—" "Shh! Shut the hell up!" The other, whose voice Addie recognized as Zach, scolded. "You owe me. Proportionately, it'll be you who owes me if I am right." The other one sighed. "God, it's always some caper you're caught up in. One of these days you're going to get buried so deep you'll never dig out. I hope I'm not here by then." Addie heard them rustling around Alex's bed, and she opened one eye just long enough to see Zach standing over Alex's torso, and the other men at the foot of the bed. The second guy was shorter than Zach, and kind of stumpy, with a long, chiseled face and a neat strip of facial hair garnished with a straight goatee. He wore a navy-black turtleneck and black slacks, and the way the shirt rested higher on the left suggested maybe a handgun was protruding out of his pants, plastered to his lower back. Zach had lost the bomber jacket and now wore just his blue jeans and a tight white t-shirt which was meticulously tucked in and secured by a basic black leather belt with a silvery buckle. Addie saw that Zach's muscular arms bore several tattoos and perhaps a brand, but she couldn't make out what they were. "Hey," Zach said, gently slapping Alex on the cheek several times. "Rise and shine." Alex grumbled and woke. When he saw Zach hovering over him, he reflexively went to punch him, but discovered the handcuffs as they violently halted his lunge. "The hell?" "Relax. I'll get those off in a minute. I just needed them so I could explain some things to you." "You mean why you tasered me and dragged my sister and I here? What do you want?" "I brought you to the hospital, which is where you need to be with those arms of yours." "We were already coming here, asshole. I didn't need your help, and I especially didn't need to be tasered and kidnapped." Alex tried to rip his arm free and winced in pain as he was rudely reminded of his fresh injuries. "Wow," the man at the foot of the bed commented. "People are so ungrateful these days. This is why I'm retired from public service." A nurse entered the room and started to bustle around behind Zach, preparing a syringe of some bluish liquid. Zach said to her, "About time. I asked for you 10 minutes ago." "You didn't have to wake him," she replied, unfazed. "What is that?" Alex demanded. "I don't want anything from you." Addie opened her eyes again to see what Alex was talking about. When she saw the nurse approaching his bedside with the blue syringe, she shouted, "Leave him alone!" Zach looked at her, irritated, and said, "Settle down. This is a tissue-repairing serum. In a few hours, your brother's arm will be as good as new." "Yeah, right," said Alex, eyes wide as canyons. "I'm not taking any serums." The nurse tried to lean over Alex to administer the medicine, and he tried to lunge at her. He winced again, and Zach rolled his eyes in annoyance. "Leave him alone! Let us go!" Addie screamed. "God damn, will you just shut it already?" said the men at the foot of the bed. "Zach, let's just sedate them again." "Lucas!" Zack scolded, putting a finger up to silence him. He turned back to Addie and looked her right in the eye. Listen, you can't trust the people in this city. I did what I did for your safety. The calm in Zack's voice seemed to de-escalate the situation momentarily, and Alex responded, Okay, so then what do you want? We asked you that in the alleyway, and you said you would explain once we were safe. I will answer you, but first let the nurse do her job. Haley is very busy and other patients need her help. It's just a standard tissue repair serum, military grade. It'll have you fixed by the time you go to bed tonight. Don't trust these people, Addie urged her brother. Seeing that they were still nervous, Zack added, Think about what you're saying. If I wanted to kill you, wouldn't I have done it while you were unconscious? What sense would all this make? Okay, Alex conceded. Addie watched in horror as the nurse Haley leaned in and injected the whole syringe into Alex's forearm. There were things other than death she wanted to scream. Thanks, Haley, Zack said, dismissing her. Next time, leave them sedated, Haley said as she took the tray and left the room. Alex? Addie looked worried. What had her brother just allowed himself to be injected with? Alex reassured her, if you could call it that. Like he said, they could have done whatever they wanted. Smart guys, Lucas said. The cuffs? Alex questioned, locking his gaze with Zack's. Zack motioned to Lucas. Get the girl. As Lucas followed instructions and released Addie, Zack reached into his pocket, produced his own key, and released Alex. Immediately, Zack's cohort moved toward the exit, where he leaned firmly on the doorframe, his arms crossed at his chest. Zack backed up and began to pace the room in front of the windows. Addie got to her feet first and went over to her brother. Alex, are you okay? I feel fine. Alex sat up and turned towards Zack, his feet hanging off the bed. Well, why did you save us specifically, out of everyone in the crowd? And now, you're here with us. Why? At the time, I thought we were under attack. It turns out it was a freak accident, some space debris too large to have fully burned up in the atmosphere, and it just happened to crash into our stadium. Under attack by who? Zack closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead with one hand as he paced back and forth as if trying to find his words. Addie just waited anxiously. You are aware of what happened, right? Of what you did? Alex lowered his brow, looking confused. What I did? I almost died, I know that. Addie and I both almost died. You're saying that was space debris? It was obvious that Alex was skeptical. Addie was as well. These things did happen, but with all the civil uprising on Grand Titan of late, it seemed a fantastic coincidence that some random space debris made it past the barriers that protected the shipping lanes and into the atmosphere without being burned or destroyed, and then hit the airblading stadium, Calivia's famed landmark of all places? Before you got to your feet, what was the last thing you remember? What do you mean? Am I on trial here? We were nearly crushed. It's hard to say what happened. How did you get there so fast, anyway? What about you? Zack addressed Addie. You're his sister, but I didn't catch your name. What did you see right before you started to help him up? Snapping to, Addie answered him. My name is Addie, and I didn't see much. I was smoking a cigarette, Alex saw something, called to me, and before I could react, I was lying face down on the ground. Hell, I don't even remember if Alex tackled me or if I was knocked over or what. It happened too fast. Nothing then? No. Honestly, though, are we being interrogated? Should we be read rights or something? You brought us here in handcuffs and... Relax. You're not under arrest, Zack assured her. Great. Then let us go. You're free to go any time. Although the guard at the door seemed to suggest otherwise. Fine. Addie, let's go then. Alex slid off the bed and started toward the door. Cautiously, Addie followed him, her eyes locked on Zack, who had stopped pacing and stood with his back to the large window. There was something he wasn't saying, and Addie knew it, but her desire to be free of this room superseded her curiosity. You should feel good as new in about 4 hours, Zack said as they reached the door. Alex looked over his shoulder and said, Thanks. He encountered Lucas at the door. For a couple seconds, Alex met his gaze, and neither man said anything. Finally, Lucas rolled his eyes and stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Before they could walk out, Zack made one last attempt. If you want to find out what really happened, I'll be around. He turned to his cohort and said, See them out, would you? Wait a second, Addie stopped, curious, and decided to ask after all. Why bother bringing us here just to let us go? You've not committed a crime, Zack reminded her. So again, I'm not holding you against your will. The handcuffs were merely to prevent you from attacking me. If you want to talk to me willingly, there is much more to discuss, I venture. I'm not sure we want to discuss anything with you. Lucas agreed. Ha! Yeah, Zack. I think you might have missed the mark on these ones. We aren't interested, Alex informed Zack. He looked at Lucas and added, And we can see ourselves out, thanks. Take a right at the end of the hall and you'll find the elevator, Zack said. Lucas shot them a cocky glance as they brushed past him and went into the hall. Once they were a safe distance from the room, Addie asked, What just happened? She was about to follow up by asking where the hell they even were, but she recognized the building after looking around the halls. It was the Hedron Medical Center, the largest hospital in Colivia. Had he taken them here in an ambulance?
If they were under attack, wouldn't this place be as unsafe as the stadium? Nothing made sense.
No clue. You should stay at my apartment tonight, in case that creep gets any ideas about trying to follow you. Yeah, for all we know, he's part of some kidnapping syndicate. I mean, would a Prism soldier really be wasting time on this crappy planet? No one can save this place. Prism. What a crazy story. He did have a badge, though, and he had let them go. Addie had no idea what to do with this information.